Joining me on the program now, public theologian Dr. Craig Harman. Craig, kia ora.
Kia ora, Andrew. Great to speak to you, mate.
Something needs to be done. That's obvious. Is this the right thing, Craig, in your opinion?
This is a tepid first step. I mean, banning 13-year-olds from using social media is a tepid first step. I mean, they probably do need to take it up to 16, and they've even contemplated it. I know they're thinking about it, and it wouldn't surprise me if over time they do it. So it's a first step so that the people don't burn the country down or kids don't go out marching on the streets or whatever.
Yeah.
But look, actually, in many cases, Andrew, kids themselves are actually crying out for help now. They're actually asking for help in this regard. So I do give the British government credit for taking a tepid first step, and probably they'll have to take those steps further.
In some ways, though, this is in itself clickbait. This is a way of saying, hey, yes, we see the problem. We also saw the documentary Adolescence, which may have a significant influence on this policy, but responding to social media, about a program on Netflix. I mean, this is the world we live in now.
Yeah, it's feeding upon itself, isn't it? And so there's no way I think there's no way around this now. We have to deal with these devices. And the more we've pressed into the whole AI world and algorithms and we're constantly having to engage ourselves now with these newer technologies. But what we're realizing is the dark side. And so the dark side is that you and I, growing up, in the ripened old age that we are, we had a play-based childhood. The fact is that you and I were outdoors most of the time, running around with footballs and rugby balls and soccer balls and whatever. And we were playing with our mates and we were socializing. We were learning skills for life. And let's face it, we all have to learn how to reason practically. We all have to learn how to use this little bit of ourselves, which is the last bit of the brain to form, okay? So that we form our brains from back to front. So you need this bit to work. But part of learning how to get that bit to work is learning what are appropriate risks to take. So when you rob a child of a play-based childhood and you replace it with a technology-based childhood, they simply just do not learn how to think as a human being. That's a real problem. And it's a real problem too. We talked about this last week, Andrew. You lower the voting age and you hand the keys of the kingdom to 16-year-olds who really, their brains are formed like the old 13-year-olds or 20-year-olds. And so that's the problem with this whole thing. So we've got this horrible circular problem. And the people that designed these devices, you know who they studied? They studied people that were addicted to slot machines, gambling machines, before they ever produced these devices and gave them to our kids. So they gave our kids the equivalent of digital crack cocaine, and that's the problem here.
I mean, as you mentioned, we were chatting last time about lowering the voting age. I noticed the UK government's not taking the toys away from the 16-year-olds, that they want to vote for them. A little bit cynical there, perhaps. But, Craig, is the genie out of the bottle on this one? We played a bit of audio beforehand, and I shared it with you before we had this conversation about how in the UK, pensioners are spending more time outside than young people, than 8, 9, 10-year-olds. And it's the younger people that are feeling lonelier than pensioners in UK society. That's not just in the UK. That's true in Australia, New Zealand, other parts of the world.
Absolutely, and this is now epidemic. I mean, we want to know what our main diseases are now. It's loneliness and anxiety. I mean, we've got a whole generation of kids where they're lonely and anxious. And again, we can chart it going back to losing around 2015, the loss of what we'd call a play-based childhood. All of this research has been done by people like Jonathan Haidt and continue to do this research. And we're recognizing that it's not like, sometimes people said, oh, well, this relates to some shooting that happened or something. Everything changed. Jonathan Haidt was made everybody aware that, no, this was going on right across the Western world. It doesn't matter what country you lived in, whether people had guns or not. This changed, and it changed because of technology. So around 2015, kids stopped playing outdoors, and we ended up having a technology-based childhood. So now kids are spending, 80% of their time on devices indoors. And as you say, pensioners get more time outside now than the young people do. And it's crazy. It's insane. So this is a good first step. But is it really the solution? Well, I don't think something that's so large scale as this problem with technology isn't going to be solved by the British government passing a law about 13-year-olds.
Oh, gosh, we've banned it. Well, that's problem fixed. And perhaps a little bit of political grandstanding on this one. The UK government saying, oh, gosh, we're taking this thing seriously, but actually yet to see if anything is going to change.
Yeah, I think it's any port in a storm with this mob. I mean, they're so on the nose with the voters that they'll probably try anything. So look, I suspect the problem is so big now that this is could only be a first step. And for example, what's the problem with parents stepping up and taking more responsibility and
Yeah.
saying, look, until you're 16, we're going to give you a dumb phone. And Nokia goes out of its way to be the dumb phone company now in comparison to Apple, for example.
Yeah.
And what they do is they just give you one of those old flip phones, which you can't, it hasn't got a screen, but you can still communicate on. Believe it or not, Andrew, there's a whole trend with Gen Zs where a lot of them are actually making that as a lifestyle choice. A lot of them are trying to detox from the digital world in which they're involved. Some of them now are going on long haul flights and just shutting their phones off altogether. And they think of this as a big achievement if they get to the other end and they haven't touched their phone. Well, in the culture that we're in, it is a big achievement in many regards.
And yet you've got a screen on the back of your chair where you can engage with
Yes,
digital media from one
well,
side of the world to the other.
The difference though with the old sort of visual stuff that you and I grew up with was at least you learned a linear story. There was
Yeah.
usually even a comedy show, whatever, had a sort of a narrative to it. That's not what kids are getting today. They're getting just clickbait. They're just getting this little shoot. I sat with someone recently who I would consider a really outstanding person and very bright in a very high career. And they said, "Oh no, I don't watch 5 6 minute YouTube videos anymore. I just watch 20-second TikTok,
TikTok. Yeah.
bites." And so you go, look, that's what our brains are being formed to learn is it's just 20 seconds of this and that's all I need. And then I move on to the next 20 seconds of something else and get another sugar rush. So that's what's happening to us.
I want to lean into the sugar rush metaphor because honestly, and hey, guilty as charged, granddad over here. If I'm looking after my grandson and I feed him ice cream all weekend, then all the best to his parents when I take him back, them trying to shovel mashed potato into him
Yeah.
on the next week. We've given our young people and we said, hey, what harm will it do? And look, I know for a lot of parents, they go, yeah, but the digital babysitter is very, very easy to do. We'll just give them the iPad. They can watch things there from a very, very young age that our children have been fed a sugary digital diet for such a long time. Just to say, hey, sugar's off the menu. It's mashed potato all round. It's not going to go down well. There's going to be some tantrums.
No, absolutely. And so we just have to accept that our brains are wired for dopamine. So we have a reward chemical that basically says when something that we really like happens, dopamine rushes through us. And what these phones and devices are doing is feeding our dopamine addiction. And so we've got kids growing up on a dopamine addiction. And so that's the bit that we're trying to undo. So you wouldn't be a responsible grandparent to do what you said. You wouldn't really be. So now grandparents, of course, they're the fun side of family life.
Yeah.
Parents do the real work, right? In fact, I said the same to my pastor recently. He said, how can you be so calm about all the dramas that are going on in the church? And I said, well, I'm like the grandparents, I get to enjoy the kids. I just don't have to take them home.
Yeah.
That's your problem. But look, grandparents are fantastic as part of the parenting process, but they are not ultimately the bad guy, the people that have to do the heavy lifting, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so we know that a healthy child needs some vegetables on their plate every night and every meal. And we're just not going to feed them ice cream. But unfortunately, with the technology, Andrew, we are just feeding people ice cream. That's all they're getting.
Just banning won't work. We need something which is more engaging, which is countercultural, and perhaps that audio that I played beforehand is young people themselves recognizing that hey, this isn't what I need. This doesn't truly satisfy. At the moment, I suppose those short form videos, that clickbait, that has become their norm. It may take a generation. It may take some solid hard work from the parents in this scenario to detox our children off the sugary digital treats.
I think the parents have got some responsibility at one end. It's interesting with Gen Zs. I think they're starting to do this work for themselves as well. They're starting to realize that they are anxious and they're worried about stuff, and they're realizing this is somehow connected to their use of technology. And so many of them are making the choice to shift and to move in a different direction. And so that's all for the good. So we can encourage it at every level of society. But look, there's one little change in the UK. Okay, let's see what happens. But I don't think that's the panacea for this thing. And none of us can escape now. I don't want to use algorithms and I don't want to use AI bots and all the rest of it. I teach in a college where I'm required to use something called Track AI, which is a Christian form of AI software. I not only have to check whether my students have been using AI, I have to use AI to do it. So there's no way around this thing.
Yeah.
We've got to sort of engage with it, and it's probably less than ideal. But then everybody, unless you're a Luddite, said every change in technology was less than ideal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have to deal with this world, and it's how do we give children back a childhood? That's the key question for me. And I think getting kids out doing more and whole communities going, look, we're going to have tech-free days and all the rest of it. Schools, by the way, could help a lot by getting tech out of the schools.
Yep.
Go back to writing. Remember those things called pen and paper? Just let's go back to that and teach kids how to write again and force them to use their brains in a linear way instead of, what we've got. And I remember my kids, the battle we had with our family, we did really well with technology till the school came along and said, oh, your child needs an iPad in order to learn well.
Yeah.
And that became a battleground and made it harder.
And hey, perhaps it is a society, family-based decision rather than a government policy to try and get votes. But
it's a whole of society problem. It is
exactly.
Like
Although we'll see how the social experiment works out in the UK, and hey, maybe we can apply some of those lessons.
Coming to New Zealand soon, I'm sure.
Exactly. Craig, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Bless you, mate. Take care.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.